Alright guys, so the computer you're looking at here on screen, I built this thing for only $350. Incredibly good deal. I'm going to show you guys how I did it and how you could possibly replicate this and build one yourself. The graphics card here is a GTX 1080. I got this thing for only $90 on eBay. You know, I remember when I was younger, if you wanted a GTX 1080, you'd be willing to sell your body for it. Now, only 90 bucks. I mean, this is a great deal. Still destroys games at 1080p. Probably your best bet if you want to build a computer like this. GTX 1080 performs around on par with something like an RTX 3050, though it doesn't support ray tracing or DLSS, but it's also significantly cheaper than a 3050. Alright, so for the CPU here, I went with a Ryzen 5 2600. Got it for only $33. Typically these things go for $45, $50 around that price point. But, you know, I'd say send offers, you know, maybe bid on them. Try and get them for the lowest price you can. I do kind of regret pairing this GTX 1080 with a Ryzen 5 2600 as the 1080 is a little too good for it. And, you know, in esports titles, the 2600 kind of bottlenecks it. But it's still fine. Always upgradable. Alright, so for the motherboard, I went with the B350M from Gigabyte. This is probably one of the best motherboards on the used market right now. You can get these things for pretty cheap. This is the third one that I've bought for builds I've done. This is my go-to motherboard for the AM4 socket. Really good, really cheap, looks good. It's got RGB, you know, everything you'd want in a motherboard. Definitely get this. Alright, so for the RAM, this is the big one. You know, the RAM prices are absolutely horrible right now, but you can still get RAM for pretty cheap. I got this for only $46. However, you have to buy 2400 or 2600, 2666, something like that megahertz RAM. You can't really get 3200 megahertz or 3600 megahertz for a reasonable price. But, you know, in the current RAM economy, beggars can't be choosers, so you gotta take what you can get. $46, not that bad. All right, so for the storage here, I went with this WD Blue 500 gigabyte. Paid $30 for it. Right now, SSD prices are incredibly overpriced because of the whole AI thing. Same with RAM. You know, you used to be able to get a 500 gigabyte SSD brand new for like 30 bucks. Now you're paying more like $60 to $80 brand new. So I would just buy a 500 gigabyte SSD used if you're going to do this, because it's just not worth the money at $80. All right, so for the case, I went with this Gamdias, I think that's how you say that. A white ATX mid-tower case. Got it for only $53. I probably wouldn't go with this case if you're going to build this computer yourself, because I got it on sale. I think it's usually like $70. Not really worth the money. You know, at this price point, I'd probably go with like, you know, maybe a $30, $40 case. All right, so for the cooler here, I went with this ID Cooling liquid cooler, 240 millimeters. Got it for only $30 back in December. Now it's $50 because I bought it on sale. Definitely would not get this if you're going to replicate this build. It's not worth the money. A 2600 does not need a liquid cooler. Even when I was under load, the CPU was only at like 40 degrees Celsius. Completely overkill. You don't need one of these. Definitely would not buy one of these. I would either use the cooler that comes with your CPU. If it didn't come with one, buy like a cheap tower cooler. I'll throw one here on screen. Probably $17, $20. Pretty good. Will cool it totally fine. All right, so for the power supply, I went with this EVGA 600 watt bronze unit that I just had laying around. So it was free for me. I would imagine most people don't just have power supplies laying around. So obviously you're going to have to buy one, but you can get a power supply for like, you know, $40. I'll throw one here on screen. $40, 700 watts. Totally fine. Probably this is more of like a $380, $390 computer. However, you know, let's say you didn't buy that unnecessary liquid cooler, probably bumps the price back down to $350. So Just don't buy that liquid cooler and it'll still be a $350 computer. So that brings the total cost for this computer to $350.69. So now we're gonna get into some games and show you how this thing performs. Alright, so here on Fortnite, playing at 1080p competitive settings, played at a very consistent around 150 to 200 FPS. Kind of made me, reconsider my own decisions. Like, do I really need a computer as good as the one I have? Because, I mean, this play is totally fine. I'd be more than happy to play on a computer like this at this frame rate. I even managed to play so well that I ended up actually winning the game. Look at this. I'm essentially a professional Fortnite player, if you couldn't tell by my incredibly good gameplay here. Alright, so next up we got Red Dead Redemption 2. This game ran at 1080p on a mix between medium and high settings. Ran pretty good, around 50 to 60 FPS. This is definitely one of those games where you can see the 2600 struggling a bit. Definitely if I had something like a 3600 or a 3600X, definitely be hitting that 60 FPS a lot more. But still, good frame rate nonetheless, very playable. You can also see that the CPU was only running at 41 degrees Celsius while playing this game, so definitely that liquid cooler was overkill. So maybe don't get the liquid cooler, get a better, put more money into your CPU. Next, we got Counter-Strike 2. This game ran pretty good. I am horrible at it, so you're just watching someone spectate. I feel like I used to be pretty good at this game. I don't know what happened. I tried playing and it's an absolute bot. But yeah, runs pretty good. 180, 190 FPS. Definitely playable, if you're Russian or you're Albanian, you want to play your Counter-Strike with your fellow schoolmates. It's a great way to do it without breaking the bank. So yeah, I would definitely say for the price of only $350, this is very good deal. Very, very, very good deal. I got very lucky with a lot of these deals. Probably going to be a bit harder for people to replicate this. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe so I can feed my children and my crippling computer addiction. Thanks for watching. It's my first tech video in I think over a year. So thank you everyone for watching. Subscribe, like. I need to pay child support. Trying to get the video to the 8-minute mark.